Do you have an outbuilding or a garage that looks like this behind me? Did you know that you can actually trigger that fight, flight, freeze response during decluttering? Let's talk about that today. So I brought us out here instead of talking about it in that room because did you feel the tension that kind of you felt in your chest when we were in that room? I know I did, but it's my stuff, so maybe you didn't feel it. But I brought myself out here so we could talk about how that clutter affects that fight, flight, and freeze response. I have a long history working in mental health, so I find this angle really interesting, and I hope that you will too. So that response can be activated by stressful events. We all know that. It goes back to caveman day when we perceived a threat. But in this day and age, sometimes those threats are more subtle, and sometimes they can come just from having an overwhelming space that we know we need to take care of and we know we need to address. And we just want to remove ourselves from that space as quickly as possible. Looking at what you have to go through can be overwhelming. It feels like we just can't think our way out of that situation. And that's because our brains activate that response. And it makes it where it's harder to think our way out of that situation. And that's why we freeze. We have a tendency to escape or want to escape or deny that those things exist. The pain of the decisions that go into getting rid of those items and going through them piece by piece, or the emotional turmoil that we experience in having to take the time and go through each item and decide whether to keep it or whether or not to let it go. So when we are in that fight response, that's when it feels like we can't think our way out and we feel overwhelmed because our instincts just kick right in. And when we're in that flight response, that's when we have the tendency to escape and to ignore the things that are there and to deny the pain that the decisions are going to cause us. And so we just want to get away from that area and do something else. And then that freeze response, that is us stalling, making excuses, taking a temporary pause, or we can use that time to plan our next steps while you decide if you need to freeze or fight. Many times we develop a very unhealthy attachment to things, and that can be from past trauma, and that can be from things that we haven't dealt with. And that's why when we hold on to items, we don't want to get rid of them because they bring back that memory of something that we just can't bear to part with yet. So we find other things to keep us busy. We avoid the things that we know are there that need to be addressed, like the clutter or the closet or the junk drawer. And then when we start to look at that, we develop all of this shame for how much that we have accumulated over the years, and we've let that build up, and here we have it. And now we are in this state of confusion between the fight, flight, and freeze responses. And sometimes we go back and forth between them as we're trying to deal with this clutter. It's a very emotional, stressful time. I know there's times that I will spend time and I will think, I can do this. I'm going to knock some of this out today. I'm going to get in there and go through things and get rid of some of this. And I'll come out with a trash bag of trash, and I'll maybe get rid of like 3 feet full of items or clothing that I didn't need that I had saved. And then I look again at everything and I see all that I just went through and realize that I made such a small dent in what I went through. And then I freeze again. Let me know if you go through this with any of your items, if you go through that fight, flight, and freeze response with decluttering. So what can we do when these things happen and when we recognize that they happen? The first step is recognizing that this is happening when we're trying to declutter and determining which stage that we're in and understanding and giving ourselves grace for being in those stages at that time. This is a tough job. It's a tough process. It's not a one and done type of situation. You can't just go in there on a Saturday afternoon and be finished. It sometimes lasts for years or months because you have to give yourself time to get motivated enough to get back in there and fight that lion's den again. So some of the things that we can do to help this situation is to learn to establish healthy boundaries on what we buy and what we keep. Many times that is the key so that we can start getting those piles of things sorted and disposed of and not replace anything or continuing to add to that pile. And then begin to heal that emotional pain that you're dealing with, that you have recognized by having those unhealthy attachments to those items. Realize that those memories are with you, that those items don't have to be there to trigger those memories, that you're not a bad person for disposing of something because it has a memory attached to it. I feel like we have so much pressure on us in our day-to-day life. We don't need that added pressure of feeling like we need to keep everything because there is some memory attached to that item. Keep what you feel like you need to keep. It will get easier for you to dispose of things and make decisions of what to keep. And I have other videos on how to decide what to keep and how to get started. But this has been something that I have been on the mission to do for a while. And I get started and I freeze and then I fight and I just go through those cycles. And it made me think that maybe other people go through this too. So what I do in my decluttering videos is I try to share the process and the mindset and the things that I experience as I go through them. I'm not an expert other than I am an expert on someone that has kept too many things over the years. So I hope this is helpful to you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and have a great day.